Get ready. Helena Hustle is now live. Here, we will showcase successful leaders in business, athletics, healthcare, and all things that make Helena a great place to live. Join Dr. Daniel Bridge, owner of Endurance Chiropractic, as he searches out amazing individuals who are making a tremendous difference in this place we call home. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired with the Helena Hustle podcast.
What did bring you to Helena?
For me, I had some family up here, so I'd visited here quite a few times. Mm-hmm. It just, I really like the peace. I really like the fact you can get in and out of town. Mm-hmm. Everybody's super nice. And I really wanted to downsize my life a little bit. Yeah. Kind of take a lot of the noise away, mm-hmm. Which I feel like a lot of people that have grown up in something that's not a massive city don't quite understand how much noise, whether you realize it or not, that just comes with being in a big city. You're just kind of always on guard.
Are you talking literal noise or like philosophical, emotional noise?
I mean, literal noise too, and there's things on paper that I think everybody's aware of, like, the crime rates are through the roof and the taxes and just the physical noise and the traffic. And so there's all of that's mm-hmm. very in front of you, and you kind of realize it, and it would be super obvious when I would come up here and visit family for a week or two. But after living here for a while, there's so much, going back to crime, like my truck got broken into twice and stolen outright, like in 3 different places within mm-hmm, LA. Mm-hmm. And so there's things like that where, like, if I parked up here and just went to drop something off at your counter and then come back, here it's like, do you even really lock your car? Or you're not like
leave
freaking
the door
out.
Open if you want to.
You're not triple checking. Do you know what I mean? We're in LA, like, absolutely not.
Really?
And so you're always on guard of the people around you. You can't really trust anybody. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly, it's a pressure cooker. Mm-hmm. So it's incredibly challenging to relax.
Okay.
And it just, it wears on you.
Yeah.
It's like, people think like, oh, like, you can make great money, and you can, the rates are better and kind of whatever you do. But I can tell you, even with the kind of real estate blow up here the last couple of years, it's still way cheaper to live here mm-hmm. and way more accessible to kind of live the American dream and whatnot.
Do you get a kick out of people complaining about traffic here in Helena?
A kick would be a light sentencing. I literally, people go, it's ridiculous, we're getting too much. I'm like, you guys have no idea how bad this can get. Yeah, it's so insane.
So you're from LA.
I'm from LA.
LA and Honolulu, I think, are the 2 worst traffic in the US, right?
So everybody up here talks about how many miles it is to somewhere. Mm-hmm. Nobody does that in LA. Mm-hmm. It's time. I can tell you within like 2 minutes how long it'll take you, depending on what day and what time you're mm-hmm. leaving. And it dictates your life. That's mm-hmm. how bad it is. It's like, oh, I really want to go do this. Mm-hmm. When are you going to go? Saturday morning? Oh my gosh, don't do that.
Bad idea.
Because it's going to take you 2 hours to go 16 miles. You know what I mean? Versus here, 15 miles is just to get into town, and it's 10 mm-hmm. minutes.
Right.
And no, it's a different perspective. For the first time, when you're young, you're not really aware of the differences of where you live and stuff like that. And then as I grew up, it was just like, I hated California for years and years and years mm-hmm. and years because it's California.
Right.
Which some people love it, and it's like, that's fine. There's
mm-hmm.
a place for those people. Great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy for them. And it's just not for me.
Sure.
And so coming here, it's for the first time in my life, I'm living in a place where I genuinely love where I live mm-hmm. for real. And then now I'm in real estate, which, it forces me of like, oh, I don't know that. Like, I want to learn about that neighborhood mm-hmm. or like, I just want to learn about these trails, or I'm like so explorative, mm-hmm. if that's a real word.
Sure.
I'll call about it later, but like, I'm just super pumped on it.
Yeah.
And so loving where I live, my job is now to learn about where I live. Mm-hmm. I'm just love my job.
Awesome. Good.
I know. I love it.
Good. I want to talk more about that, but let's do your 2 truths and a lie, Stephen.
Sure. Yeah. So 2 truths and a lie. I was in a horrendous motorcycle accident. I'm a licensed electrician, and I used to be a CrossFit trainer.
Ooh, these are good ones.
I've seen a few of your other people with their 2 truths and a lie, and I just felt like there was room to improve, and I just really wanted to bring it.
I feel like it's I would like to know what my stats are, because I usually am able to guess these, but I have no idea. You weren't a CrossFit instructor?
You nailed it.
Okay.
Was it my absolute lack of athletic ability? Was that what it was?
I could just tell. No, just kidding.
Yeah, no, I definitely was far from it, a CrossFit trainer. But yeah.
So, well, you're obviously keep yourself fit. What do you do?
To be honest with you, I mean,
don't say just good genes.
No, in fact, I have genes that are not great, but just mostly diet really helps me. Ever since I did get in a horrendous motorcycle accident in 2021. So ever since then,
just
stretching. Yeah. So stretching helps. And I just started lifting. I mean, it's weird. I'm super disciplined in so many aspects of my life. The diet and exercise has always been a miss. I was kind of a pudgy kid growing up. And so, I mean, I've lost, and it's kind of an easy thing because I moved up here in 2022, March of 2022. And so that's a great, I mean, when you move to a whole new state, kind of new life, you know, it's a, you know, it's a great stepping off point to like change things. So I've lost some weight since I moved up here, and it just mostly just diet and exercise. I'm a big fan in kind of whatever I do. If you nail the basics, I feel like that's 90% of life. You know, it's like, oh, if you get a new job and you want to be the best, okay, show up earlier than everybody else, be the hardest worker in the room, and just be relentless. Like, okay, that's very hard to do. But it's not easy to figure out that that's going to take you to the top. You know what I mean? I feel like that's most things of like that last, you know, like the best in the world at something. Those are the guys that are figuring out those last percentage points. But I feel like most of it is you just got to do the work.
Most of it's showing up.
Totally.
Yeah. You go to the gym, you know. Does it really matter how many sets and how many reps and how many seconds? Sure. I'm sure it affects you. But if you're showing up to the gym X amount of times a week, you're miles ahead of those who aren't. So
diet really helps me, even, which is insane, but like you know, the whole carbs and everything, like right now I'm mostly on carnivore. Like I had a piece of chocolate last night, you know what I mean? But it is real in the sense of, cause I got bad knees and a bad wrist and, you know, and just achy because of the motorcycle accident. And so if I'm just eating enchilada casseroles, like that's my thing. I don't just go eating ice cream and stuff, but I'm a casserole and just heavy foods kind of guy, like bread. Oh my gosh, bread is the most amazing thing ever.
Bread's great. I'm also an ice cream guy.
Are you?
Oh yeah.
But just with inflation in my body, and I'm sure you get this too, and you hear about it all the time being a chiropractor, but I mean that stuff, diet makes me feel so much better.
Oh yeah.
And then, I mean, it's, you know, everybody's heard this already, but just mental clarity, pumped about life even more with my job. It helps me wake up earlier, which I did forever in construction, being a licensed electrician, but and I never got to like it. But even in real estate, it's like, all right, there's my edge, you know, unlocking the doors every morning. And just when you send the emails, and I could tell people aren't up yet, so you wake up to people emailing you, it just kind of sets the tone for the day a little bit, you know, that competitive edge.
Yeah. How long have you been doing carnivore for?
I've done it off and on. This is my first week back on it.
How's it going?
It's actually going really good.
First week's rough for me. I've done it a few times.
It's very interesting. So like pretty much this week, all I've eaten is chicken and some bratwurst and some eggs.
Okay.
And the first 2.5 days are rough because you're just hungry and then you're low energy. And I just have like two things. I try to not eat breakfast because I'm the type of guy that eats and I just get lethargic. I just want to take a nap immediately. So if I can wake up early, do my workout, which I have some stuff at home I can use, so I can work out and then get to the office first. And then real estate is, you're doing a lot of managing. You're kind of cooking all these different things. So it's very different than, you know, my past of being a commercial electrician, where it's like you're there, you're hands on, and you have to be there, otherwise nothing's getting done. Where, yeah, you have all these things cooking in real estate, which sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, there's all these fires you got to put out, and it's a 14-hour day.
Right.
And there's sometimes you're like, all right, everything's kind of humming along.
You got time to
totally, like I can do a lunch today, you know, and okay, just a few emails and kind of making some calls and just double checking to make sure that everything's running smooth. The chef thing is totally a real thing in real estate. Like sometimes it's like you can't run fast enough. But if you're doing your job right and everything's kind of cooking right, it should be easy.
Brisket's on there. It's got 4 hours to go.
You got the guy smoking, and then you got this going, and you know, something's in the oven, and you're kind of like, you're on point. Okay, here's our deadlines. Let's make sure we're well ahead of the curve, you know? And I love that aspect of it I'm a big believer in, this was a great transition of like, you can control what you can control and there's things you can't. So just own it. And I'm realizing that there's some things you can't control, but you can really make it close. You know, like when I first started, so I've had my license for a little over a year now, but I was still an electrician. I was buying my own house. And so that was really taking up my whole time. So I really wasn't a real estate agent.
Do you still have your electrician's license?
I do.
Nice.
Yeah. I do not have time for side work because I'm
but you're going to keep it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Easier to keep it than to go back and get it.
Well, what's interesting is everybody thinks of like, oh, you can do electrical work for your clients in real estate and you can help them out. The biggest thing that has helped me in real estate with my just electrical background and even just construction background in general and being on construction sites and talking to other trades is you can tell when somebody's lying to you in construction. If you're buying a new construction or just after an inspection and they go, well, this isn't really a big deal, or we're going to, that's just how it normally comes. I don't even tell them that I am a licensed electrician. I just go, dude, you're BSing me. And I'll tell my client that I go, look at this guy's not being straight up. So should we call him on that, or should we just, silently know that he's lying to us and then just, act accordingly?
Interesting.
So it's a great edge in that sense of like, there's a lingo to construction. There's a lot of things of like, are you going to see it in the final product? Is it going to be, can't see it from my house. Everything that's above ceiling and in the walls does not look nearly as pretty as what you're going to see final product.
Okay.
It just, with production and how they want to build, it's just the way it is. But
yeah. So what made you decide to become an electrician?
So electrician, I was the guy.
Let's actually start with your motorcycle crash.
Sure.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah. So
dirt bike, road bike?
Road bike. I mean, I rode both. In LA to get around the traffic. I mean, a motorcycle is the best way to get across LA.
You can legally cut through.
Absolutely.
Lanes,
so,
right?
I mean, in here in construction, people start about 7. In LA, it's 5 or 6 a.m. Because the traffic is so gnarly. So you're waking up at 3:30, leaving at 4.
Wow.
So on the way there isn't as bad because you're kind of beating the curve a little bit. But on the way home, to go 15 miles, if I was in my truck, it would be an hour and a half to 2 hours versus an hour on the bike. And then, 45 miles to the gallon and cheap insurance and the whole thing just keeps going. But it was March 13th, I think, of 21. So I was actually going on a date. It was a Saturday. It was about 5:40 in the evening. Beautiful California day. It was dusk. And but literally pulled away from my apartment complex. And I had a few bikes, but this was my bike. It was a CB 1100 for any riders out there, but
for us non-riders, what is that?
A cafe looking bike, old school air cooled inline 4. Think of like a 70s Japanese, like inline 4, the 4 pipes coming out the back. So kind of vintage looking cafe racer bike, right? This was I put on my denim jean jacket and I felt like John Stamos, when you're kind of bent over, even though I clearly wasn't. But I literally took off from my apartment complex and crashed like 10 seconds later. Like the first spot where somebody could turn left in front of me, they did. And it was actually my 3rd time going down. This was like the one that was really bad. Most of them were not too bad, but and the thing I tell people about motorcycle riding is everybody and their brother, when you tell them you ride, they immediately have a story and they want to tell you how dangerous it is. And it is what it is. Everybody knows the risk you're taking. And to be honest with you, like I do miss it. It's just, it was such a time off and I have too many other goals that it's like, I just can't ride right now. But ultimately this woman turned left in front of me, hit the brakes. This bike didn't have any locking brakes. So I hit the brakes. And then if you've ever been in a crash, there's kind of that quick math of like, I'm not going to be able to stop. So like max brakes. And then I hit the front brake a little bit more to try to stop. And then that locked up the front wheel, which jams the bars sideways. I go down, sliding. I was going about 45 miles an hour, sliding, put my hands out, sliding on my right side, and then ultimately kind of cannonballed, kind of knees and feet first into the side of her car. And the full list of injuries is broken left ankle. I think it was my fibula.
Fibula, yeah.
Fibula, yeah. They say it's not I had to wear a boot for that. They were like, oh, it's great. It's not a weight-bearing bone, which makes no sense to me. Like every other bone's like, can you just help for 5 seconds? They're like, nah, dude, you guys are doing a great job. But broken left ankle, tibial plateau break in my right knee, PCL avulsion in my right knee, cracked right hip socket, 2 fractures in my pelvis, broken, let me see here, bruised lungs, a tiny little bit of road rash, not too bad. But this left wrist I had to have surgery on. It broke my, what's the one right behind your bone? Starts with an S. What is it?
Scaphoid.
Broke, sheared that in half, and it was kind of down here. The guy told me, he's like, I had to cut you open and like push it up from the bottom. That's still got a screw holding it together. I broke the one behind that, and then there's the 2 bones in your forearm, and I broke the corner. And then if you look at the side angle of like the x-ray from the day of, my hand's like up here and my wrist is down here. So no compound, but he goes, luckily everything in my hand, all my hand tendons were okay.
Wow.
But he goes, all the tendons in your wrist were ruptured. And so, I can't do push-ups anymore. Like I can go all the way back, but I can only do that far back. So I can't do push-ups. And
you could get those power bar things.
Totally. I mean, I can work out. It does wear out after a while. Like it's just like, now that I'm lifting weights, like this week, like next week, it'll probably get worn out. But so I can pull, and I can still do like bench with a bar because it's enough. And most of it's on your palm. Yeah. But like a full push-up, I can't do push-ups. Dang. But I know, and I was doing push-ups all the time. But no, that one, I was off work for almost 8 months.
That's crazy.
And
so was most of this from the road or hitting the car? I mean, I know it happened in the blink of an eye.
So the handlebars turned all the way left when the front wheel locked up, which obviously, and then the bike just kind of slaps the ground, and I was on top of it. And so the wrist is from that initial just fall. And most people that crash, you put your hands out and everything kind of goes up. And everything went down. So I think I just kind of like fell on, I didn't even put my hands out. It was so fast. So I just fell on top of my hands and everything went down. And then when I was sliding, you naturally just kind of want to slide, because I was kind of sliding sideways. So you naturally want to slide like with your legs forward. So I put my hands out and to kind of pivot. And then it wasn't like I was like staring down of like, oh my gosh, like here comes the car, I'm going to hit the car. I mean, everything's so fast. It's all a couple seconds. But I remember putting my hands out and kind of turning, and so that way I would slide legs first, and then I just kind of, that's where the knees and the hip and everything is. I kind of, the way I describe it is like 3-4 stories up, just do a cannonball to the sidewalk. That's what it felt like, because it just kind of landing on my knees. And it's like the wrist, how that was like probably the most gruesome. I didn't even feel the wrist. When the guy showed up, he's like, what hurts? I said, my legs. And the legs were killing me. And the thing about motorcycle accidents and just anything is you kind of have, first of all, I was wearing a full face helmet, so I couldn't look down. So you have this moment of, everybody can kind of gauge pain. If you roll your ankle, it's like, I've rolled my ankle before, this sucks, but it's going to be fine, or I know where I'm at. So if you just jump to 10 or jump to 20, you have no reference of how, like, I don't know if my legs are turned around. Right. It's just this huge pass of like whatever the most, and I've been in motorcycle accidents. I've torn my meniscus, and I've crashed another one where I flew like 50 feet, only sprained my ankle really bad, crazily. But that one I passed out, so I don't remember most of it. But this one I was awake for the whole thing. But so there's so much pain, you can't see it. I don't know if my legs are turned around. Like there's no getting up. I'm just laying there. And I didn't even feel my wrist. I'm surprised you're as I can't functioning as you are after that. I don't know if there's a shutter speed quick enough to catch me jump off the ground, because I just cannot jump very well anymore. But yeah, so I have no spring back in my knees, so like run, like I can jog, like I've jogged like 3 miles, but if I try doing that like 2 times in a week, it's like I'm limping for a week. Just the impact, Wow. Like I can mountain bike ride, but it's like I'm not hooking jumps, stuff like that. But I definitely hit the therapy and stuff hard for my knees and my wrist. But no, it makes you appreciate life for sure. Well, good for you for hitting it so hard, and not letting it defeat you. Because I think a lot of people maybe would, Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like I've always wanted to get in shape before that, and just never could stick with it. And then now it's this, which granted I probably have every reason to not get in shape, because like I said, there's a lot of parameters of like I'll start working out and it's like right away hit a wall of just things hurting, weird things, like I'll work out my back and I'm like, oh, my knee hurts, and I'm like, how the hell did that happen? Do you know what I mean? Right. But just weird little things, but it is what it is, right? Just you got to be undeniable. Well, yeah, way to make use of your second chance. So. Sure. Okay, so yeah, back to the electrician. Okay. So, and this is a great feed into how I got into real estate too. So I was that kid that didn't really like school. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was like, I just wanted a career that would, provide for me. My dad ended up being an electrician. I've got an uncle that was an electrician. And so it was one of those things where I've seen that the trades can work out for you.
Yeah.
So originally I was going to go to college to be an electrical engineer. Mm-hmm. And then right away it was just kind of like, I'm not interested in college and school and just didn't want to stick with it. And so there's a union 5-year apprenticeship that caught my eye. Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing that for Local 11 down in LA, 5-year apprenticeship. And then you journey out and become a journeyman. So I did that. I got in when I was 21.
Okay.
So journeyed out in 2019, May of 2019. And it's pretty interesting because I finished, that's what they call it when you finish the 5-year apprenticeship. I actually came up here in 2019 and visited my folks and was looking at houses and was kind of, because you can go anywhere with it, you know. Was looking at houses and kind of wish I bought back then because it was way cheaper. But I mean, I was like, I probably looked at like 4 houses, like walked them. I was kind of like, okay, like I could afford this, 1,500 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath, like just kind of your basic, like you can rent it out later or you can move up if you want, or you could stay, like that sweet spot, you know? And I just, I got an offer, the big SoFi Stadium down there. I got an offer to run some work down there.
Oh, right on.
And so I was like, okay, like this is going to be a ton of overtime. It'll be a great experience. It'll be like a year of just grinding, but I'll be able to save a ton of money. And that was kind of my plan of like, all right, like I'll just do this for a year, save a ton of money, and then I'll come up to Montana and buy a house. So that happens, and then COVID happens, right? So that delayed things.
Right.
And then, COVID was crazier in California than up here. Everybody was like, it was a crazy 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh my God. When I came up here in 2022, LA was still in a state of emergency. Okay. To kind of give you guys the picture. It was pretty crazy. But so yeah, 2020, now that's COVID. Okay. That pushes things back. And then 2021, getting this huge motorcycle accident. So that's 7.5, almost 8 months of like just healing. And part of me was, I did a podcast and I'd done a little bit of stand up, but I really was like, I just feel like I have like a really good way to talk and just talk to people, and this voice I was really passionate about. I never was able to figure out how to make it take off or make money, but I ended up doing 101 episodes like what we talked about earlier, but it just couldn't figure out how to turn it into a career. But I felt like that's what I always felt like in electrical. It's a great career. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned of doing that was like, okay, this is not how, I mean, I was able to get it down just through days and days and days of just hammering on, but it's not my natural, what comes easy to me.
It's not your strength necessarily.
Totally. And you totally figure that out. Not only as you're becoming a man or a young adult, but you figure out your strengths and weaknesses. And I was like, I feel like everything that I really would excel at of like, this is the way I'm wired has nothing to do with construction.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I was able to do pretty well. Like I said, I ran work and ran a $7.5 million job, and it didn't come easy. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then let's see here, 2021. I get hurt, and that's like the summer. And then I went back to work and was kind of like, okay, I still have a career. Like, does it feel better getting down on my knees and working with my hands? No, but can I still do it? Yes. And so I was like, okay, I still have a career.
Right.
And worked about 5 more months and then moved in March of 2022. I was kind of just, I remember thinking, I was like, I'm buying a house this year. Like it's happening. And so I met with a real estate agent we all trust in the family and blah, blah, blah. And
here?
No, in California. Gotcha. I was kind of like, life needs to continue on.
Right.
And that's one thing about California is it's so expensive that you can't grow. Like I talk to people here and I'm like, I've made twice the amount of money that you've made, and I feel like work twice as hard, and you guys have like 3 houses. Right. Do you know what I mean? And you guys are killing it, and you have rentals and all this stuff. Now you're making more than I am. Because that's where you can say like, oh, you can make more money in California, but it's actually holding me back, And so and this was in, 2022, end of 21, I was talking with the real estate agent, and it was like, okay, it's going to cost me $600,000 to buy a house I don't want in an area I don't live, to live even further from LA, to continue a job I feel like I shouldn't be in.
Right.
So I was like, is that really something? I'm going to be totally chained to this career now if I get a huge mortgage.
Forever, yeah.
Yep. So that really, I was like, at that point I was like, is this podcast thing really work it? You know, this passion project. And I just decided it was a huge ego blow of like, all right, I got to stop the podcast and stop doing this,
What was the theme of the podcast?
It was a little bit of everything. It was ultimately the podcast was called Standing Still. And if you go and listen to it, be careful. I was a young man when I made it. So, and some of it was, at first I did comedy, right? And then I was still in construction.
Solo, or were you interviewing guests?
Well, I did stand-up comedy first.
On the podcast?
No, just in front of a stage doing open mics. And I realized that was, you're up all night to maybe get 5 minutes. And then I had to be at work at 5. So I was getting 2 hours of sleep. And I was like, I just can't. And I was only a couple years into the electrical thing. So I was like, I got to make this work. And it was just a situation where I was like, I it's just not sustainable. Like I can't not sleep, you know? And so I was like, it was right when I was really starting to listen to a lot of podcasts that I was kind of catching my flow and just, that was part of my life. And easier barrier to entry. And I was like, this is on my own time. So that's where it started.
Right. And
I totally had to learn that those are two different things of interviewing people and talking with people in stand-up comedy. So ended up doing 101 episodes, but some of them were comedy, to answer your kind of question, or some of them was just, you know, if you came on, it was like, let's talk about how'd you get into chiropractic? Like, what's your story?
Right.
So some of them were their own stories, which, as you can imagine, has been fantastic in real estate for me, of just being a great listener. I feel like that's almost the biggest statement you can make nowadays, is being a good listener.
Yeah.
Because most people aren't good listeners, but and just hearing people out. You know, and kind of putting yourself in their shoes of like, you must have felt like this during either this horrible time or this fantastic time. So did that, and it was a great outlet for me, and learned so much from people of like, whether it was just so inspiring, or just, hey, I really went through this and this is a huge bummer, but check me out now, you know, to even just like, just having 3 friends over, and I was like, hey, you know, my truck got stolen. I went to the dentist, and it was a horrible experience. Like, let's all laugh at me for an hour. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So it was some of my own life, a lot of other people's lives, but it was such a, and you end up, I mean, it's similar to like what you hear comedians talk about, but you're always looking for content. And so you go through life and just every minute of the day, super self-reflective. And so you learn even more, even if it doesn't become content, but you're just analyzing everything 100%.
Right.
So you just learn, and you sap every like lesson you could learn about everything. And so you kind of get a crash course in not only yourself, but like how you want to take on life. Cause you're just, you know, you're not vegging out ever.
Right.
But yeah. So to kind of keep it going, right? That was kind of, got up here, and I didn't know I was going to be in real estate. But when I moved, I was like, okay, I'm going to move. I'll probably have to do electrical for a little bit. But I knew I wanted to get out of it and find something with these tools that I feel like I've kind of learned and realized I had. Real estate was one of those things where I feel like it's got a stigma of like anybody can be a real estate agent. And what do real estate agents even do? So that actually shied me away for a long time, because it's similar to podcasting, such an easier barrier of entry. It's not that hard, and it doesn't take that much money to get a real estate license. But having a real estate license doesn't make you a good real estate agent. I can tell you that right now. And there's a ton of people that say they're a real estate agent that don't do any deals. Yeah. But I decided to do it mostly because I felt like I was going to be good at it. And also, I've talked to a lot of agents, a lot of, women that are older than me, which I feel like is most agents, especially successful agents, but they love houses and interior decorating and things like that. And so then they come into sales. So they loved the product and they're like, maybe I can figure out how to sell and talk to people. I'm the exact opposite. I was like, I felt like I'm really good at talking to people and just connection, and maybe I can turn that into sales, and I'll learn about houses and that whole thing. So I came at it from the people side, and then now I'm figuring out the product. Right. And I've always I've seen it work out for so many people of getting into real estate and that whole world and investing. So on a personal level, I was like, if I can get inside, like that's only going to aid me in my own investments. Right. So that's kind of where I came at it with that. And I'm about to hit 1 year of like really being full-time, not being an electrician.
When's your year date?
I got to look at the exact date, but it's like mid-January. Cool. And I'm really happy with the way it's gone. It's been a total roller coaster cause it was cold turkey. I bought a house, my first house. And, got laid off the week later.
Oh my gosh.
Which I saw it coming,
Uh-huh.
you know, and I could tell, I think the guy was keeping me on just because he knew I was buying a house.
Yeah.
And I needed the electrician job to get the loan for the house. Right.
Dang. Uh-huh.
And there was other work to be an electrician, but it was all out of town. And I knew I was like, I can't do that and be a real estate agent, which is my ultimate goal. So just cold turkey of like, all right, I'm a real estate agent. And this was right after I just, you know, put money down on a house. I bought a car for real estate. So I was like, I just spent most of my money. And then just in a town, I don't know anybody, 0 leads, don't have any idea how to be an electrician or be a real estate agent. After your first 30-year mortgage, like go be a real estate agent. And the cool and weird thing about real estate is, you know, you have a broker and you can ask them questions and things like that, but it's not like an apprenticeship where people are guiding you along. So it's kind of just like, cool, here's your license, figure it out.
Go do it.
Cool, if you got your license, now convince people to sell or buy their most prized possession.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a huge order. So there was definitely, there was some stress. But looking back, I mean, full transparency, first year, they say 6 months to a year to get your first transaction. And I did 10 in my first year.
Nice.
So 10 in my first year. Am I a rich guy? No. Have I paid all my bills? Have I paid my mortgage? Have I paid everything and been okay? Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
and most of that has been the last like 4 months.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So if I keep the same track I'm on, I'll be making more than I've ever made in electrical next year.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. So
love it. Yeah. I can tell you're good at what you do, and I'm really happy for you because, you know, the thing that sticks out from our conversation is, you know, finding your passion, using your strengths.
Totally.
I'm never going to be a professional football player.
Yeah.
I can run though.
Right.
And, you know,
I'm jealous of that. I can tell you that much.
I have gravitated that over my life. And, you know, it'd be really easy for you to say, hey, I've already put 5 years into becoming an electrician. I can't throw that away.
Yeah.
So for the next 70 years, this is what I'm going to do, instead of saying pause.
Yeah.
Is this what I'm passionate about? Is this what I'm best suited for? Maybe a reset's in order.
What's interesting coming off of, you know, how to transition, I that was the big thing, right? I tried doing it with the podcast and stuff. And a lot of people, I heard a lot of this of like, you're being lazy. And I go, do you think it's way harder? I was 8 years into being an electrician, journeyman. I have a career that I can go anywhere with, you know, it's way harder to get out of that.
Way harder to start over.
You know, you talk to the people that are working a job that I'll say is either minimum wage or just an entry level position. And they go, oh my gosh, like that's so easy for you. You know, you have this job and I go, okay, that's fair. Maybe I have some more money, but try to just cancel that, you know, that transition of you already have something. So you're throwing away a lot more versus somebody that doesn't have that position.
Right.
Who cares about the transition? Because you're going to be back to where you were in 5 seconds, you know? So 2 things I want to bring up that's kind of an interesting point, and it kind of brings it back to talking about just nailing the basics. And this is what really clicked for me and kind of started bringing me success in real estate was the first 2 months. It was like January of this year to March. Was I going to the office? Yes. I just couldn't make it click, and I wasn't going anywhere. Not only was I not making any money, but it was, you know, everything's a pipeline, and, you know, you get something in a contract, you're going to get paid in a month and a half, stuff like that. So everything's in the future with real estate. And it was, I mean, you can see the math. It's like, not only am I not making it, I got no money coming in,
Right.
you know? And so it was, I got to change something. 2 things happens within the course of like a couple of days that really, I know I needed to get obsessed about it. It's not that I was blowing it off, but I have that, I'll get obsessed about things. And I know I needed to do that in order to kind of overcome the fact that I didn't live here and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one thing, my dad fell on the ice on March 6th. It was his 59th birthday.
Oh, shoot.
Right. Smacks his head. I get a phone call from my mom. He's in the hospital, brain bleed.
Oh, gosh.
They're like, he's probably going to be okay, but come on down here. So I cruise down there. I don't cruise down there. I rush down there. I meandered down there. He's fine, but he knows who I am, but he doesn't know why I'm there. He forgot I'd moved to Montana like 10 months earlier.
Okay.
And it's that type of day, and it's every 2 minutes. You know, he forgets about his dog, which is like his life. And so it's just this heavy day of like, is he going to come back? They fly him to Great Falls because there's no surgeon here in Helena. So they didn't think he was going to need surgery, but they wanted a surgeon there. I had to go pack a bag. I was like, Mom, you go with him in the plane. I got everything. So it's just this heavy day, right?
Yeah.
He stays overnight. By the way, I packed a bag for my mom. I had full transparency. Just if you've ever had to pack a bag and just grab a handful of your mom's bras and put it in a bag, it's the most awkward thing ever. But I got it done.
Yeah.
But so I drive up there. Anyways, it's this heavy day, and he comes home, and now we got to watch him, and it's this whole thing. And I remember when we were in the hospital, and it's this every 2 minutes repetitiveness. He goes, "You're a comedian, right?" And I'd done it a handful of times. I go, "No, I'm not a comedian." He goes, "No, you're a real estate agent." And I'm only 2 months into it, right? And it's not going well. He goes, "You're a real estate agent. You're really good at it, right?" And I had to just keep telling him, "No, I haven't done anything. It's not working out." Right? And so saying it out loud, which I knew it was already true, but saying it out loud over and over again, it really clicked of like something needs to change.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "No, you're an electrician." He goes, "But you're going to be a really good real estate agent." And I felt it, right?
Yeah.
So that really clicked. And I remember it was like a day or two later. My dad's already home. We're kind of still tending to him. And my broker calls me, and they were just coming back from this like Century 21 big like yearly convention in Florida. And he goes, "Hey, what's up, man?" I remember I was at 1889 and I was listening to Alice in Chains. Okay, I remember exactly where I was at. And he asked me, "What do you got going on? What's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing." I forget the exact conversation, but basically I was like, "I don't have anything going on." I was like, "What can I do?" And he just interrupts me. He goes, "What 10 things did you do today to be a better real estate agent?" And it was a moment where I had a valid excuse. I was like, "Well, I've been helping my dad the last couple of days. That's been my life." But I was like, there's no way I could say an excuse where the last 2 months I haven't had the excuse.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, you're going to be the guy for the 2 seconds you have an excuse. You're going to use that.
Right.
So I just didn't say anything. And I remember I texted him like 10 minutes later. I was like, "Today's the last day you call and ask that question. I don't have an answer for you."
Nice.
And granted, I've missed a couple of days here and there, but 99% of those days since then, I have a list on my phone every day, 10 things. It's called my 10 things list. And I just write down 10 things. And some of them are as simple as like, check the hot sheets. What new things are on the market today? But that's an easy thing to just
10 things every day.
10 things, at least 10 things. And it's some things, sometimes you're like trying to figure out how to get to 10. Because, like I said, either you don't have much going on, especially at the beginning. I don't have anything under contract. I don't have anybody I'm looking for. I don't have anything.
Right.
So it's like, how am I going to be a better agent for 10 days? It's like, all right, can I go up to any other agent in the office? And there's some absolute killers in that office. Great agents. And can they argue that they worked harder than me today? You know what I mean? Like for real, like if you can ask yourself that question of like, is it undeniable that you're being the hardest worker that day? If the answer is no, you're not working hard enough. You know what I mean? Like, and you've really faced it of like, okay, those guys have 10 things under contract and I don't have any.
Right.
And they're working harder than me. Then they deserve it.
Yeah, well said.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love the word undeniable because it sounds super cocky and everything. And obviously everybody has flaws, but that clicked and I've been obsessed about it. And I lived at the office. I was the first one there. I started getting floor shifts just because people were like, "Hey, I got to go do this. Do you want it?" And then I would get calls. And it sounds like people are coming in, but so we'll wrap this thing up. But anyways, no, there's just those 2 stories. That's where it really clicked for me.
Well, the name of the podcast is Helena Hustle, and you're embodying that.
Thanks, man.
So you got to put in the work to achieve what you're capable of.
It's between that, the fact that I love where I live, and the fact that I now have a job that, I've been such a workaholic. People from, where I used to live, they go, "Oh, what have you been up to?" I'm like, "I'm just working." And they go, "Oh," and I go, "No, I love it. I can't get enough of it." Yeah. For the first time, it's like, I can't work enough hours.
That's awesome.
It's all I think about.
Everything's coming together for you. Health, work, everything. So Stephen, if somebody wanted to learn more about the Helena real estate landscape or get to know you more, or maybe try to find out if you guys were a good fit, best way to contact you?
So social media is one way to check me out. I really stress social media. So if you really wanted to just kind of learn more about me, I have a lot on there. Stephen Hoffa Realtor on Instagram and Facebook, or you can email me or call me. You can go on Century21 heritage.com and I'm on there. And just Google Stephen Hoffa Realtor and I'll pop up. Okay. But zero pressure. Yeah. Right. That's what I always tell people is like, you have goals. That's my job. Is not to get you into something. It's not to do this. It's whatever your goals are. That's my job. Yeah. you know?
Cool.
So, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for coming on.
It's been a minute since I've done a podcast, and it's super fun to be on mic.
No, it's easy to talk to you. So
appreciate it, man.
Okay. Thanks, Stephen.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Helena Hustle Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Helena Hustle Podcast.